Hello, everybody. We are here today with Rory Power, the author of the Wilder Girls, Sălbaticele in Romanian, a book that we launched a month ago and that was launched in US a year ago, a year and a month. And it had a very good receival from the critics, from the public. I was talking to Rory earlier and I said it seems almost a prophetical book about the period we are experiencing now. But let's welcome Rory Power. Welcome,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, how are you guys?
Great. We were expecting you because after this great book cover, everybody wants to know the story behind the book cover and the story between the book covers. So, what was the main idea? What was the spark that led you to write the book?
For Wilder Girls, it was so I took a trip in, I think it would have been early 2015 at this point. And I went to go visit a friend of my family who her family lives in North Carolina, which is kind of south on the east coast of the States. And there's a series of islands there called the Outer Banks, and we stayed there at her family's house. And I'm from the north of the States, so like I'd never been there. It was totally strange to me. Like the landscape was really different, and I was really just taken with this island. And as we were leaving, I was like, I'm gonna steal that island and just like lift it up and move it and put it down somewhere and write about it. So that was really the start of it. But also like I've always loved boarding school fiction. I just love like a closed environment where you only have the people you have, like they can't leave, they can't come in. So it was kind of just putting all of the things that I loved onto that island and getting to hang out there.
So, have you ever been to a boarding school, or it was just a fascination space?
I went to regular school, but I did over the summers I would go to a music school that was boarding, and I loved my time there so much. It was very different. It was like in the mountains. We just like played piano all day. It was very different, but I loved that experience and how the friends that you make there, the relationships are just really like heightened in a way because they're the people you spend all your time with, like day and night, and they're your family and your friends. And so that was, I think, waiting at the back of my mind.
Yeah, great. It's really is a great story. But let's talk about the characters. Hetty, Reese, and Bayat are great characters. They are very powerful, very strong voices. Did you picture them as they are in the book from the beginning, or did they suffer some transformations of the writing?
Well, Bayat was really the first girl that I had. I love characters like her who maybe we see as one thing but are something else, or are just like unreliable in some way. So she was the first girl that I had, and I originally wrote the book entirely in her point of view. And as it is, it's I would say like 70% Hetty's point of view and maybe 30% Bayat's. But the very first draft was just 100% Bayat, and it was I thought it was super interesting, but it was like very boring. Um, Nobody else would have liked it. So I wrote that and was like, this is wrong. Everything is happening to her friend. So I should probably write about her friend. Um, so it was kind of Bi at first, then Hetty, and then Reese was always kind of this like question mark for me. She's the only one of the three that we don't get a point of view from, and I like that about her. I like that she is very like closed off and mysterious, but you get these sort of flashes of emotion from her.
Yeah.
And so she was always the same. It just took me a little while to get who she is, because we need to see her from other people only. We don't get to see her for herself.
Yeah, and I found out on your Instagram that you made playlists for these characters.
Yeah, like immediately. It was pretty much the first thing I did, even before I really wrote much. I always write to music, but it I didn't even write to those playlists. I just made them so that I would know like who they are, and also to help keep them distinct, because I wanted them to feel very separate as people,
Yeah.
but to also have a good idea of how they overlap and what makes them work together or not work. Probably more the case.
So the music plays an important role in your creative process.
Mm-hmm.
What music did you listen when you wrote Wilder Girls?
A lot of there's this one artist, Banks, who I listened to a lot of, and then there was also really like a 2-month period where I just listened to one song on repeat. It was like I can't listen to that song anymore. It's just completely ruined, but it's a great song. It's called One Bad Night by Hayley Kiyoko, and I just something about it like clicked in my brain, and that's all I could listen to. It was, yeah, if I hear it now, it's like a physical reaction.
Which character do you relate most in The Wilder Girl, and why?
I mean, I think they're all like me because they came out of one brain, so they're all going to be like little bits of me in a way. But I think it's changed a lot. I think originally I would have said Hetty, just because when I was that age, like she depends a lot on other people to tell her who she is in a way. And I think that was something when I was, 16, 17, it was like your friends mean everything to you. They really help define you. And so I think that felt similar. But now I'm like, I think it might be Reese because, which I don't know if that's a good thing. I think she's like private in a way that feels relatable to me, but she also like ends up being very bad at keeping feelings close to her chest. She'll do it for like 70% of the way, and then she just lets it all out, and you're like, I didn't know that was happening.
Yes.
So I think that might be relatable.
Yes, but Reese, I felt it like very powerful inside, She was like a ball of fire and ready to explode.
She feels so much all the time, and she hates that about herself and wishes she didn't, and it's like, too bad, like you can't get rid of it.
So, do you think it's important for teenagers to read about heroes and heroines about that are more real, like they made mistakes, hate each other, they get friends and get even. It's important to grow reading stuff more closely to the real future.
Yeah, I think also like I think it's important to understand, to help. I mean, I think books help us understand things about the world around us, and I think it's important to see that heroes or people who do good things aren't necessarily perfect, and that we can expect good things of each other while not expecting to be 100% good from top to bottom. But I also think it's good to, at that age, to see mistakes being made by people and have it not be like the end of the world, and have them be able to continue on after that. So that's, I mean, it is a lot of what Hetty does is the end of the world.
Yeah.
But I think when I think about that, I look at the ending, which I won't, like, in case anybody was watching who hasn't read it, I won't spoil it, so don't worry. But it's an open ending in the sense that really the point of it, for me anyway, it might be different for anyone who reads it, but the point of it for me is just that they continue, that there's a sense of forward motion. And that was really the thing that I needed the most when I was younger, is just like, no matter what you've done, no matter the mistakes you've made that feel really big and really hard to get away from, things will continue. You'll keep going. It might be hard, it might be very hard, but it doesn't mean that like everything's over forever. So that, I think that's why it's important, or part of why it's important, to read about characters who are deeply, deeply flawed, but still worth time and worth paying attention to, and worth like a continuation.
You have in the book some powerful scenes, some tough scenes. um, Seeing your picture, I didn't know you until today. Wondered how this sweet girl wrote such a tough scene. How do you prepare for a scene like that? How do you research? I don't know the process.
Some scenes do need a lot of research, but I usually don't know what I need to know until after I'm done writing it. So I'll write it and like hit questions that I have and sort of write them down, be like, okay, later I need to figure out exactly how that would work. And I keep going. But also I think I'm a big fan of like taking a metaphor and making it literal, or taking the literal and making it a metaphor. Like the whole book is basically like an obnoxious puberty metaphor if you want to go that route. So I think there's something really powerful to taking like these experiences that you go through as a teenager and making them into a literal, like, monstrous thing. There's a scene near, I think it's like near the middle of the book, where Hetty and Reese encounter a figure from Reese's past, and something bad has to happen. And I mean, to me, on a metaphorical level, it's a really sort of simplified version of like what happens when you realize your parents are not who you thought they were, or like seeing your parent change in front of your eyes. And maybe that's just because you get older and you can see them as a more fully realized person than just like your parent. And maybe that's fine. Maybe it's destructive in some way. So I think when I think about like big scenes in the book, it's more about like what is the emotional resonance for that person. So in that scene, it's like Reese having to confront this thing about her family, and Hetty having to make a really hard choice. So I think that's where it comes from, is just sort of what would be the hardest thing for the character emotionally, and then like what can I turn it into on a metaphorical level.
After just 1 week after the book launch last year, Wilder Girls got the second place in the New York Times bestseller list. Mm-hmm. How does it feel? Your work?
Yeah, that was a good day. Last summer, not this summer because of everything, but I usually spend my summers teaching at this creative writing camp for teenagers. Mm-hmm. I've been there for like 5 or 6 years, and I was with them the day that I found out. And, you know, they're like, they've known me a long time. They're, you know, 15, 16. So I was like, guys, I have good news. And they were like, oh, okay. Like what? I told them that I'd hit the list, and it was almost dinner time. So they were like, okay, cool. Can we like go? Can we go to the call? And I was like, yeah, you're keeping me humble. Like, totally. So lovely, of course, to see your work hit a nerve maybe, or just be recognized in a way. But I'm just incredibly grateful and happy that I get to keep writing. So
And I think later that year, the New York Public Library decided that Wilder Girls is the best book of the year. How do they choose that book?
I have no idea. I think there were like a list of like 10 or 15 books. I don't know. But the funny thing about that is, like, I usually find that stuff out on Twitter, like from other people who are telling me like this happened. And I'm like, oh, I did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. But yeah, and I love libraries. Like, I would spend so much time in my town library when I was a kid. So like that one especially was just like very cool.
Yeah. When you write the book, it was any specific topic you research in depth, or?
Yeah, I ended up doing a lot of research on like disease, but also on evolutionary biology. I did a lot of research because the sickness, for lack of a better word, that happens to the girls, the symptoms they develop are pulled from evolutionary biology, and that what's happening to them is that they're sort of developing these evolutionary characteristics that appear in other animals that are not meant to appear in humans. So things like bioluminescence, or having a third eyelid so you can keep your eyes open longer, things like that. So I did a lot of research into like what have different things evolved to help them in their specific environments, how would that appear on humans. And I when I can, I like to write at a coffee shop or like in public somewhere, because I need noise, and I also need to be like shamed by the presence of other people. So I'd be, sitting at a coffee shop Googling like insides of fish, and like someone would walk by me and see my screen and be like, what is happening here? Because it would be like disgusting images top to bottom. But I learned a lot, so.
Great. Someone just break the ice. Ali wants to ask you something. Ali, could you open your microphone?
Yes. Hello. I'm really happy to participate in this meeting and getting to talk to all of you. My question is, have you thought about doing a sequel or an epilogue to Wilder Girls? Because as I think you know it already, that many readers would love to read more about our girls and find out a bit more about the sickness, and there are some unanswered questions. And yeah.
Thank you, Ali.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that. I've definitely thought about it. I think it's tough because for me, I feel like there are definitely a lot of unanswered questions. But I also think about a book as being about answering one question, like from beginning to end. And for me, when I wrote it, my question that I wanted to answer was like, what happened to Byatt? She's really the arc of it for me. So, we get to the end and we find out what happened to Byatt. And that is, I think, as far as I wanted to take it in this particular book. I've definitely thought about doing a sequel. I even went so far as to talk to my editor about it. But I think for now, we're going to leave it as it is. Obviously, never say never, etc. But I think I'm not sure I have something more to say about the girls yet. And maybe I will later. But for now, I don't want to like write a book just to write a book, because I want it to be like good and worth it for you guys.
Yeah.
but it's definitely like, I feel like they're always just like sitting there at the back of my head because I love those characters and I love that world. So yeah, I don't ever quite feel done. But there is, this isn't a sequel, but there's like a little prequel thing that I did for the release of Burn Our Bodies Down that I don't think is available anymore, but I hope that it will be widely available soon. So that's like more content. It's not a sequel, but it's a prequel. So
That's cool. That's really good to hear. And thank you for thinking about the sequel.
Oh, I'm always thinking about it. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. But in the meantime, the second book just hit the shelves in the US, called Burn Our Bodies Down. And how is the story behind this title? And if there is any tiny bit connection with Wilder Girls?
So the book is about a girl named Margot who lives with her mom. She doesn't really know anything about her past or her family, and her mom is like keeping it secret. Her mom's difficult to get along with, so Margot goes looking for her family and finds her grandmother, but she also finds a lot of things that she probably wishes she didn't know, and some weird, like creepy, spooky things happen. And it's set in Nebraska in the States, so it's a lot of like cornfields and like old farmhouses and that kind of thing. It was a hard book to write, a tough one, but it's really like personal to me in a way that being about Margot and about her like discovering what she does or doesn't have to accept from family. And so that matters to me a lot. And in terms of the title, I usually start every book with just like a phrase that's going through my head, and it doesn't ever like mean anything. And usually I just like, it ends up disappearing. But for this book, it was Burn Our Bodies Down, and I sent it to my editor, like, I don't know, is this anything? And she was like, yeah, that's the title. So that's where that came from. I think when you get to the end, it does like mean something more. But yeah, and as far as the connection to Wilder Girls, there's no like obvious connection, but there's a little like, there's a detail in something that happens in Burn Our Bodies Down. Like there's a physical description that links back to Wilder Girls, and I wanted it to be like, if you don't pick up on it, that's like, it won't matter. But if you do, just a little like, hello, like, thank you for reading.
Yeah, you just said cornfields, and I find creepy as hell.
They're very scary.
Yes.
It didn't take a lot to make them scary. I just had to mention them.
Right. There are so many movies where the people are chasing each other in the cornfield and someone dies. Yeah. And no link to Wilder Girls. No, not in the atmosphere or.
It's definitely like a similar book in terms of it has the same like vibe. The same style. I think the characters make sense as like, that's the kind of person that I like to write about. So I think if you liked one, you'll probably like the other. But they also, you know, they don't overlap in terms of like plot. And I also think that if Wilder Girls was too open-ended for you, I think maybe you'll like Burn Our Bodies Down better. It has a little more like closure at the end. But if you like weirder like body horror stuff, you might like Wilder Girls a little better, because Burn Our Bodies Down is not as gross.
What was your journey to become a published author? How did you start to write?
Well, I loved to write growing up, but also my mom is a writer. She taught English and literature when I was growing up, and then she also became a writer. So I saw her doing that, and it meant that from like a very young age, I knew that it was possible to like, it wasn't just like writers are some like mythical being. It was like, no, writers are my mom, and like she writes and then she makes dinner. So like it's a real thing that I can do. So I wrote a lot when I was a kid, up till about high school, and then I stopped. I was like, no, it's not going to work. Just don't even bother. And it took until I was about 22, 23, and I was working in publishing. I was editing books, and I would catch myself like editing a book and being like, I want to write one though. So I would start to write at my desk, and like my boss would walk by and I'd be like, I'm not doing anything, it's fine. But I would be not doing my work. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote the first draft of Wilder Girls and was like, this is not good. I need help. So I did a year of grad school, which not like grad school is not necessary to be a writer. You do not need a master's or an MFA or anything like that. But it was really helpful for me personally, just because it gave me time and feedback and like structure, and people expected me to write, which they never had before. So that was like incredibly useful to me. And also because I did it in the UK, so they had a lot of like financial aid for students from abroad, which was like perfect, great. If they didn't have it, I'm not sure I would have done it. But yeah, so it was kind of a lifelong thing that I loved, but I took a break from it for a while, and I think that was good in that when I came back to it, it was really like on purpose instead of just a thing that I've always done.
Yeah, and I think in order to be a good writer, you must be a tremendous reader, because you need to read a lot. How did you choose your book as a teenager?
I did a lot of like reading from my mom's shelves. In the house I grew up in, you would walk in and it would just be a room that was 4 walls and they were all bookshelves, like floor to ceiling. So I would just kind of pick my way through them. But I was very lucky in that I grew up with parents who wanted me to read and wanted me to read whatever I wanted. So like a good weekend activity for us was we would go to a bookstore, and my mom would go and she would find books she wanted to read, and I would just wander and find stuff that I was interested in. And I loved fantasy growing up. So I read a lot of adult fantasy that, looking back, I'm like, you were not old enough for that. But yeah, it was really like, I value the way that my parents raised me in that sense a lot, because like it meant that by the time I was 15 or 16, like there was no question about whether or not reading was going to be a part of my life, because it was just so important from the very beginning. Like we didn't even watch TV until I was like 13, which I love TV now. Like it is my favorite thing. But before that, that was all we did. We just read. So
Great. I think Ali has another question. Ali, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here. Hi. Now I have to turn on my camera now.
Great to see you.
I've been thinking about 2 questions which are mostly related to each other. One is about which character did you find the most difficult to write about?
Honestly, I think it's Hetty, which is kind of alarming because she's most of the book. But she's tough for me in that she just like does stuff. Like she like makes decisions and she does things, and I'm not that person. Like I'm very lazy, first of all, but also like I overthink everything and I get really indecisive. And Hetty, when it comes down to it, she will make a decision very quickly and do whatever she has to do. And that was tough to be in the mind of, and I'd write like a page of her overthinking everything and then be like, whoa, wait, she wouldn't do that. Like, she doesn't care. she would worry about it for like a paragraph and then be like, cool, I'm doing it anyway. So she was tough. I think she was the hardest.
And how about the easiest character to write about?
That would be Bayet. I think her point of view has this like formatting trick to it where whatever she's thinking and the way that she's thinking is reflected in the way that the text looks on the page. So basically I just got to hit the tab key a lot. And I love when books do stuff like that, or just like little style oddities. So getting to do that was really fun and really easy too. It just like, her voice was really easy to find. And I'd already written a whole book in her point of view. So it was like, oh, I know you, you're fine. Thank you for asking.
And, one more, if I can.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was wondering about this sickness. What was the reason for which it affected the girls differently?
So you get a little bit about it in the book, and I'll say like, I'll try to keep it a little bit vague in case anybody hasn't read it, but it's down to like the hormone levels in their body, and what's different in someone who is assigned male at birth versus someone who is assigned female at birth. And that is what the sickness is responding to. So depending on that and on where your body is in that process, that's what it will do differently. So I hope that's like clear without being too giving it away.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for answering more of my questions.
Of course.
And now I think Catalina Moldovan has a question or two. Catalina? Hi.
Thank you. So I have two questions actually. First is, do you make usually a plan before starting to write, or you just go for it?
Kind of both. I'll make a plan, like a pretty vague plan, sort of like, here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end. And then I'll start writing and I'll realize that my plan was wrong. And so I'll have to do another plan, and then I'll keep writing. And I'm like, well, that's not right either. So I have to do another plan. So like both, in that I do like to have an idea of where I'm going, but I don't stick to it no matter what. Like if it's not right, I'll just do a different one.
Okay, so the second, what comes first, the plot or the characters?
For me, it's setting, actually. I can't, like for a book that I'm working on right now, I had like the plot or kind of a plot and kind of characters, but it wasn't working out the setting because I'm a very like visual person. So I need to be able to get a sense of where they are, and I can't imagine incredibly detailed and well-rounded people, and I'm so jealous of that. But instead I'm like, no, I have to know if they're like trees or not first. So that's what I do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catalina. You said about the book you're writing right now. Is it in a garden burning gold?
No, so this is my next YA book, which in the States, we haven't like officially done a thing about it yet, but it will be sometime 2021.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. And then In a Garden Burning Gold is kind of waiting for its turn. But I'm excited to get back to work on that because it's like a whole different voice and style. So
yeah, I remember that when you announced your first adult fantasy in the Garden Burning Gold, you said, and I quote,
oh no.
to write indirectly about my Greek family and roast my yaya.
Yeah.
Tell us more about.
So my mom's side of the family is Greek. I'm second generation American, so she was born here, but Greek was her first language. And my grandparents on her side, they immigrated in the 60s. No, in the 50s. Sorry. But yeah, so I've spent a lot of time growing up going back to visit them, and my Rory is a nickname, and my first name is this like Greek monstrosity that's very difficult to pronounce. So I've always that's always been such a huge part of my life growing up, going there pretty much every summer, and like that's where so much of my family is. But it's also, whenever I read about Greece in books, it's about a specific kind of Greece. Like it's about the ancients and the Olympians, and that's just never been a part of my experience. Like somebody asked me, they were like, "Do you guys still worship Zeus?" Like, no, like we've kind of moved on from that. And like the Greece that I experienced was very different, very like we were from the northern part, kind of almost near Albania, in that area, and so it's very like it has like echoes of Byzantium still sometimes, and it's just a totally different experience. And so I wanted to put that down on the page and sort of take those places that I've been to and loved my whole life and add a little something to them, and get to hang out there for a while. So and also to roast my Aya, who she was obsessed with Byzantium. She would read about it constantly. She just absolutely loved it. And so I'm taking all of the things that she would tell me about it and putting it in there. And also like her particular quirks they show up in the book.
Do you think it's important to us as individuals to extract the essence of our cultural inheritance? You just did so with Greece, but I don't know, does it define us, our ancestors' roots?
I think it can. I think understanding it and deciding sort of how much it's going to matter to you is really the important thing. Like, being Greek, half my family isn't Greek, but that part of like my Greek family has really been the thing that's felt really important to me. That's sort of the connection that I feel most strongly. So I think understanding where we come from is important, but then I think the next part of it that I think I like to write about is sort of deciding how much of that to make our own and how much of it to be like, okay, that was in the past, or that was like your thing, this is my thing. So like finding the parts of it that belong to you. I think like it doesn't have to all apply, but some of it does.
Yeah, it's good to know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said at some point that one of your goals for 2020 is to try a project in a new medium or format. Mm-hmm. Did you do it so far?
I did try. This spring I tried a screenplay, like a page of it, and I got to about like the end of the page and was like, I am not ready to do this yet. So I'm gonna try again in the fall. And I did write a short story, so that kind of counts. Yeah, I like, the most important thing to me is just to always be growing and to be getting better and to be working on my craft, because this is my job. So like I want to be doing better every time. And I think working in a different format, a different medium will be really helpful for that. So I'm going to try again.
Yeah. And how was it to translate the novel into a story? From hundreds of pages to maybe dozens.
It's tough. Yeah, I think I had a little practice doing it before, because there was, when I was like right at the beginning, when I was like 22, I tried to write a book and I got about 100 pages in and was like, this is a short story because I have nothing else to say. So I just compressed it. Yeah, it's tough, but I love what short stories can do, which is, take that 1 second and like blow it up and examine all these different parts of it. So that is really exciting to me. And I feel like you can do things in one medium that you can't do in another. So yeah, like writing the Wilder Girls prequel. It's a short story. So that was really exciting to take characters that I already have written in and like see what they're like in this different situation, and getting to really like zoom in, but not have to worry about like the sickness and all that stuff. So it was really fun.
Yeah. Now, Sara Maria has a question, or
Yeah, sure.
don't know, Sara?
Yes. Hi, Rory. I'm very happy to meet you.
Hi.
And I have a question for you. Which is the first book that made you cry?
The first one, gosh. Oh, actually, okay. I think that, I don't know if it's like technically the first, but it made me cry the most very early. And that's Martin the Warrior by Brian Jacques. It's one of the Redwall books, which are like kids books, but they're like long, and they're about like this sounds so funny to explain. They're about like mice who like fight in wars and stuff. They're wonderful, but Martin the Warrior just like broke my heart. And I remember I made my mom read it so that she could understand why I was so upset. And then she was like halfway through and I asked her like, have you gotten to the thing? But I said what it actually was, and she was like, no, I haven't. So you just ruined it for me. But it was devastating. I was so sad.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Also, another goal for 2020 was to enjoy the aftermath of Burn Our Bodies Down more than you did for Wilder Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Explain us to understand.
So this time last year, I was Wilder Girls had been out for like a couple weeks, but the thing I was really focused on was working on Burn Our Bodies Down. At that point, it was, I think I was like 4 drafts in, and I had many more to go. It was just a difficult book. I didn't really know what it was right when I started, so I ended up writing a version of it, and then my editor and I were like, this isn't quite it, so I rewrote it. But then that wasn't quite it either, so I rewrote it again, and then that was maybe it, but it needed like at least 8 more little rounds in between. So it was just a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'd never had a book published before. So it was just, at that point, it was a balance that it takes a while to learn to balance between like hearing reviews and hearing people respond to the book that's already out there, and balancing that against like, okay, well, I also have to write another one. And I have to figure out like, who do I listen to? Who do I not? How do I balance that? So it was just a very steep learning curve for me. And I think I'm better for it. And I think I'd be better at it now, certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a big adjustment. And I like spent most of the fall just like completely out of the loop. I would be like writing, and then look up and be like, I don't know what day it is. Like, this is really difficult. So yeah, I feel like I'm glad that I went through that, because I'm much better now at like managing my work and figuring out what's better and what's worse, but it was a new experience.
And I think in the end it was a great experience.
Yeah.
I have a question from Christina Stahi, which I think is watching us from Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Hi Rory, I have read Wilder Girls and I enjoyed every page of the book. I want to know if you, as an author, run into criticism, and if it is so, how do you deal with it?
I mean, yeah, all the time. I don't go like looking for it. I try. My feeling is that like reviews are for other readers to help other readers find books that they might like or not like, and so I feel weird like being there and reading stuff like that. So I don't go looking for them. But you know, it's the internet, so I get tagged in things and they get sent to me, and they're not always nice. Like, fair enough. Like, not everyone's gonna like the book. That's totally fair. But also I've found that reading them is hard for me. I think I like to hear criticism from like my editor, from my critique partners, or people who I send my work to. But it's hard to like read a comment about the book when you're like, I can't do anything about it. It's done. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I agree with you, maybe I don't, but like the book's finished. So I try to not read reviews wherever I can. And if they do like sneak in, like I'll see a line somewhere. My rule now is that like I get to feel bad or feel whatever for 15 minutes and then I'm done. And like after that, you don't get to feel that way anymore. And like it doesn't always work, but I think it's good to like not pretend that it didn't affect you in any way, because like it's hard. It can be hard.
Yeah.
But also to be like, just like let it go. Like,
Yeah.
feel it, let it go. Remember that as many criticisms as people have, there's praise as well. And like also criticism is just like part of it. And I can always get better. I can always grow. So yeah, it's a lot. And I think that was also part of what learning to balance last summer between like writing and hearing other voices. That was part of it, is learning to let it roll off you. And also like learning which words to mute on social media. So that like just like making the walls a little bit tougher.
Did you had a national book tour last year?
No, so I spent most of the summer at this camp that I teach at, and then over the fall I went to a bunch of events, which was amazing. It's just really nice to like remember that they're actual people holding your book. Like it's weird, but I forgot anyway. I would like it you work so hard on something and then it kind of disappears and it belongs to other people, and it's just events are really nice to like see people and know that they read it, and you're like, okay, they did that. So yeah, that was great in the fall to be able to travel and to see my friends, like other authors who I hadn't got to meet yet. But yeah, not over that summer. And of course now I am not going anywhere. So
You're not going anywhere, but you meet I think many people.
yeah, like now.
Yeah, right. I know that not long ago you were very sad because you lost a good friend, Finn.
Yeah.
Please tell us about Finn and your friendship, and how important is it to you for you to have a companion?
Yeah, so Finn was my childhood dog, or one of them. We got him when I was 14, so I'm 28 now, so he was half of my life. Just the best guy. He was completely codependent. Like he couldn't do anything by himself, and it was really adorable. But yeah, it was obviously like very, very hard, but hold on, she's asleep. I decided that I would do a cat this time. She's so grumpy. She's like, why have you woken me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Like having something, okay, you're going to hurt yourself. Okay, she's all right. Having something like to take care of is really good, especially as a writer. Like you can disappear into your work so easily. And to be able to like have a cat or a dog who's like, excuse me, like I need help, I need you to pay attention to me, it's good. It like it reminds me that I have to get out of my chair and like go do things.
Yeah. Catalina has a new question.
Hi again.
Hey.
Hi again.
What is the most difficult part about writing for you?
I think the hardest part for me is after I've turned in the book, like after it's done, but before it comes out, that part is really hard because I keep thinking of things. I'm like, oh, what if I change this? Or like, did I fix that thing that I wanted to fix? I can't remember. Or I'll open it and I'll see like an adjective on the bottom of one page, and I'll see that I also used it on another, like the next page, and they're so close together, and like that pings something in my brain. I just hate it, but I can't do anything about it. I'm like, it's done. I can't change it, or it frustrates me to no end. So I've learned to just like, once I send it in, never look at it again. Like, just don't do it. So that's hard. It's a tough part. I hope I get better at it every time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catalina. So I have for you 3 more questions from Yulia, which is on Facebook. The first question, which were your favorite books as a child?
So I loved the Redwall books. And I also loved Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. It's this like massive fantasy series that I also read when I was probably like a little too young for that. But whatever. Yeah, I loved those. I loved like Ballet Shoes by, oh gosh, Nicole something. I forget her last name, but it's like a very classic like book from the United Kingdom about like children in like the 30s, I think it is. Oh, I'm gonna get that wrong. But yeah, I loved a lot of different things, but I just especially gravitated towards like speculative books, like fantasy and stuff like that. I just love that.
The second question, do you believe there are enough strong heroines in young adult literature?
No, I think we always need more. But I like to think about what strong means technically. Like, I think sometimes when we say strong female character, we mean like a character who is like what we expect of men, who is like strong and tough and like fight stuff. And that's a great character. But I also think the more heroines we have, the more variety we can have, like the more types of girlhood there can be. And like, maybe there's a girl who doesn't like that stuff, and like she should also be represented. And maybe strong is also flawed. And so I think that's the most important thing to me, is not just yes quantity, but also making sure that there's like a huge variety, because I think that's also super important. And I it's great, there are so many books coming out with just like very different female characters, and so I think we're really in a great time for that.
Yeah. And the third question, what is your secret recipe for such a heroine?
Yeah, no, I think she needs to like have something that she's very fixated on, like a goal that she's very determined to follow through on. But then she also has to have like a big, I'll say a failing, or like a fatal flaw in a way, something that she can't overcome. And maybe she doesn't by the end. I'm always interested in girls like that, where like maybe they don't become better people. Like, I think that's fun to read about. But yeah, I think if you can find that sort of ugliness in characters, because I think that exists in all of us, but we kind of expect it to be sanitized in women. Like, we don't allow women to be ugly either inside or out. So I think finding those like uncomfortable, like ugly parts of girls and any character is really helpful to making them this like fully realized person.
Yeah. Sara Maria, do you have another question?
Yes, I have another. How did you change your writing style after you published your first book?
So the style from my first book to my second book is similar. It's the same kind of voice, but I don't do as much. So my feeling is that like I can use how I build sentences to reflect how the character's feeling. So not just in like what words I pick, but in how the sentence is built, like what kinds of words it's missing or using. So for Wilder Girls, the girls are like very stressed all the time. So their sentences are really short and choppy, and they break really often. And so for this second book, she's still stressed, but she like has food and running water, and like she's got a little bit of a better situation. So I tried to lengthen her sentences a little bit and to sort of make it a little bit more like flowing in a way, so that when she does become really stressed and when her sentences do get short, it reads as more of a difference. Does that answer the question? I feel like, I don't know if it did.
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. I will get back to the cover. I'm very curious about its story. Did you had any brief for the artist, or how does it work?
So for this one, I have a great designer. So there's the designer who works for my publisher, and then she will like find artists and figure out what kind of look they want to go for. And my designer is Regina Flath. She's a genius. I love her so much. And she sent a bunch of like concepts to me. And so they were like, there was one I think of like two girls holding hands, and there were like vines coming out of their hands and stuff. And so ideas like that. And she was like, does this seem right to you? I was like, yeah, that looks great. So she went away and was like, gonna go find an artist. And what they came back with was just what is on the cover now. And it's a piece of art by an artist named Ekure Dogdu. He's a Turkish illustrator who does amazing work. You should check out his Instagram. It's gorgeous. And they just sent me that, and they were like, what do you think? And I was like, I have no feedback. I love it so much. Like, great, we did it. So she found him, she found that art, and she adjusted the coloring and added the texture and stuff. So I had like pretty much zero input in terms of finding the look of it, but also like, great. Don't ever ask me if that's how it's going to turn out. Perfect. But yeah, it was really just like very serendipitous.
Do you reward yourself after finishing a book?
Yeah, I try to, because I feel like it's a good thing to do, to just like be nice to yourself in that way. But I also always forget that I have. And then, so I'll like buy a candle, be like, hooray, I finished my book. And then I forget that I already did that, and I buy another one. So I got to work on that. But yeah, I do.
I've seen on your Instagram that you love candles. What's your favorite fragrance?
Anything with coffee in it, I just love. It really like, it's a very like work scent to me. Like, it helps me focus. So anything with coffee. I don't know if you can, there's one lit like right there.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
That one's like lemony. It's lemony and like a little sugary, because otherwise I think it would smell too much like cleaning supplies. But yeah, so fresh or like coffee. Those are my two options.
Yeah, great. We have another question. Was there more pressure for you writing Wilder Girls or Burn Our Bodies Down?
Definitely Burn Our Bodies Down. I think the great thing about writing Wilder Girls was that when I was writing it, nobody, like, I didn't have an agent. I hadn't sold it. Like, nobody was waiting for it, so I could write it and take breaks and like do whatever. So I could, I wrote a first draft and read it and was like, this is not it, and took about a year off from it. which was really, really helpful in that when I came back, I could like see it clearly. But for Burn Our Bodies Down, you know, I had an editor, I had agents, I had readers, which is something that I take very seriously in having people who want to spend their time and their money on something that I'm making. So like that pressure was both from people, but also something that I put on myself, in that like I want it to be worth it to the people who are invested in it. So that was tough. And again, like something I feel like the more you do this, the better you get at managing it. But for the first book that people are waiting for, it's like, oh God, I better do a good job.
Yeah. So how do you spend your lockdown? Do you listen to music? What do you do?
Yeah, I listen to music. I look after my cat, which is a full-time job.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of TV, like a lot. I read. I'm at a point in the book that I'm writing right now where it's hard to, like, I'll get to the end of the day and I'm like, if I see another word, I'm going to lose my mind. So I'm not reading too much right now. But I've found that like reading short fiction, especially during lockdown, has been easier to like wrap my head around for some reason. So I've been reading a lot of short fiction. Yeah, watching a lot of TV, cooking. I tried to take up drawing at one point. No, it did not. We left that behind. But like hobbies, I'm trying to find hobbies that I can do without leaving my house.
So, you said you watch TV. Do you have some favorite TV shows?
Yeah, I mean, I have like billions, but I think my favorite is Succession, which is on HBO, which I steal my mom's HBO to watch it, so she doesn't need to know that. It's just so good. Like the way they do dialogue on that show is unreal to me, and I feel like I learn something every time I watch it, and the episodes are just like, they give me exactly what I love out of television. Like I love when you take characters who all have conflict and like stick them in like one house for a weekend, and they just do that all the time. It was made for me. It's my favorite. Oh, so good.
Speaking of movies, did you received any proposal for movie adaptation for Wilder Girls?
Yeah, there's some stuff I don't think I can talk about. But yeah. It's been really cool, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to say things soon. But you know, everything in publishing and everything else takes a very long time, and also even especially now it takes even longer. But just like any interest at all has been very, very cool. And like, even if nothing ever happens, like that's enough. Just getting one cool email is very like perfect.
No, let's say it will happen. Would you be involved in the script, or would you want to do it, or let the people adapt?
I think I'd let them do it. Like, especially now, I haven't done it. Like, I don't know anything. So, like, it's definitely something I'm interested in, and I'd like to just try to learn more about screenwriting and to see how it goes. But for the stuff I've already written, I'm like, you guys do it. I've done my job. Like, let it be someone else's problem now.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Let's hope it will be a movie, Wilder, because I think it would be a great movie.
I think so too, but I am biased, so.
Yeah. It was a great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being with us today. And as I said, I would be very happy to meet you again in November or December, at the beginning of December. because Wilder Girls in Romania has only 1 month on the market, and I'm sure during the autumn it will have a big success. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so
Thank you to
much,
everybody for coming and for watching and asking questions. It was lovely to get to chat in person, so to speak.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rory. And thank you all for being here. Bye.